started, I'm actually super happy that we are not meeting in person with how much of a mess our roads are this morning. So it's great that we're able to connect with everyone in this virtual format today with the snow. So thank you for joining us today for our legislative power update. Today we are joined with Bridget Garcia, Government Affairs Manager at the Colorado Association of Realtors. And she will be reviewing the 2021 legislative session and the priorities that CAR is working on. So thank you so much for being here today, Bridget. I will take my screen down here and let you share yours. Okay.
Thank you, Erica. I first off want to thank you all for letting me join your meeting this morning. And I hope you're looking forward to the storm we're about to get. We have a lot of items that our Legislative Policy Committee is currently considering. So it's already been a busy start to the legislative session. So to give you kind of some background of what this year has looked like for us so far as we're getting through the month of March. The legislature actually started their work towards mid-January on January 13th, but they used this time only to swear in new members, and they had a handful of small items to take care of, including time-sensitive bills that related to COVID-19 support. And from there, they actually took a recess. So they took a break for about a month and came back in mid-February, February 16th, just due to COVID-19 concerns that we were dealing with at that time. So we saw in February a lot of the opening traditions that were kind of halted in January. The governor provided his State of the State address where he listed his priorities for the year and his areas that he would like to prioritize in terms of budget dollars, and then opening speeches as well from leadership within the legislature. And from our elections last year, we have a very different composition of our legislature where the Democratic Party actually leads both in the State House and State Senate. In the State House, we're looking at a 41-24 divide, and in the State Senate, a 20-15 divide. So fast forward to now, we are here at March 10th, and over 400 bills have been introduced by our legislature. LPC, which is our Legislative Policy Committee, is currently tracking 50 of those bills. And a friendly reminder to everyone that at any time, our Legislative Policy Committee meetings are open to members to attend. You're more than welcome to attend as a guest. We are doing the meetings via Zoom for the time being, but at a point when we do get back in person, there's still a call-in option if you are interested in listening into those meetings. So I'm happy to share more about when the group meets if that's something that's of interest to the group. So looking at what bills LPC has been considering and working on, there's a handful of topics, good and bad, that's been on the priority list for CAR this year. But first, I would like to start off with CAR's Century of Opportunity campaign, which you may have heard of in celebration of CAR's 100th year anniversary. So towards the end of last year and at the beginning of this year, we implemented a statewide study where we surveyed current homeowners and future homeowners, those who would like to purchase a home but just haven't been able to up to this point. And we asked them, what was the home buying process like for you? What obstacles did you experience, if any? And to those of you that are still renting, why have you not been able to purchase a home if that's what you're looking to do? And we got a handful of responses back in which we were able to put together a legislative package with community and business partners like Habitat for Humanity and the Colorado Bankers Association. And these bills that we are putting forward this year will proactively focus at reducing barriers to accessing affordable housing and just owning your own home. 3 of the 4 bills have been introduced so far. One of which is financial literacy, which will add to high school curriculum requirements on education on financial literacy related to credit and debt accumulation, savings for retirement, student loans, and preparing for purchasing a home. The second bill that's been introduced is a reporting bill within the Division of Housing. Ultimately, this bill would require the Division of Housing to report where money is being spent on different homeownership programs across the state. And that way we have a better idea on how the state invests these dollars into homeownership programs. And this also includes federal dollars. The third bill that's been introduced so far is a credit building bill. Ultimately, it's a pilot program that will allow tenants to opt in if they have a landlord that is participating in the pilot program to use their consistent and timely rental payments as a way to build credit. So this is one of the top obstacles to home ownership that we uncovered, especially in communities of color, that a lot of individuals are actually credit invisible or just haven't been able to find a way to improve their credit so that they can start the home ownership process. The pilot program will also require that any tenants that are participating in the program have to complete financial literacy courses as a participant within. Then we have a fourth bill that has not been introduced yet that will be coming soon, and it's a menu of options bill for developers who are looking to build affordable housing. And this bill would use the money that was approved from Proposition EE last year. If you recall, it was the tax on nicotine and vaping products. So a portion of that money is dedicated to affordable housing, which will go to support this bill and the intent of the bill, which would provide developers with a menu of options that help them through the process of developing these projects. And so we've been looking at things, for instance, of just reducing parking minimums or expediting the permitting process. And, you know, developers would pick a few options from the menu in order to receive these dollars. And so this is an idea that we actually have seen be done in Utah, who requires that developers participating in the program select 3 to 4 options. So it's actually higher than what Colorado is looking at with a requirement of 2. But that bill is coming soon, and that is something that we will definitely alert everyone once it is introduced by the legislature. And we do have some really great talking points and data that we collected from our study that we're happy to share with you all. If that's something you're interested in, I can certainly provide those to Erica at any time. Other items that our Legislative Policy Committee is working on are broadband expansion bills. We've already seen a couple come through looking to expand broadband access. Specifically, what LPC is looking at is ensuring that this type of legislation doesn't jeopardize private property rights and doesn't interfere with eminent domain and cause any, you know, unwanted harm to our property owners. They're also looking at a bill, specifically House Bill 1117. It's a repeat bill from last year looking at implementing inclusionary zoning practices and also rent control. And this is something historically we've been very opposed to and have worked with NAR and other realtor associations across the country and have data and come to conclusions that rent control just doesn't work for Colorado. The bill is actually in committee today, so we've been working on amendments for the bill, and we'll certainly alert the group of any changes that are coming soon. Another priority of the Governor and Joint Budget Committee is actually wildfire mitigation funding, which is probably no surprise given the year we saw last year with our wildfires. There's a couple of bills that LPC is currently looking at that puts more dollars behind mitigation and prevention efforts, one of which is Senate Bill 54. Ultimately, it puts $6 million into the Forest Restoration and Wildfire Risk Mitigation Grant Program, so that the grants can be used to reduce hazardous fuels or things like dead trees, anything that could be a potential risk for spreading wildfire. Again, this is a bill that LPC supports. It also allocates $3 million to be matched with federal funds so that local governments can put together strategic plans to prevent wildfires within their communities. And it provides $4 million to the Colorado Water Conservation Board within the Department of Natural Resources. And this is to work on damaged watersheds from the 2020 fires, most specifically from the East Troublesome fire. Another wildfire bill that's been very important to LPC is House Bill 1008. They are currently in a support position. This bill would allow local communities to set up their own special districts to finance local mitigation projects. And then there's a third proposal that the committee has looked at that we are keeping an eye on, is a bill that came forward last year and we'll expect to see again this year, but a bill that would basically be a fee-based program on hazard mitigation. And LPC is opposed to that proposal. We've also seen business-related legislation come forward, one of which gives a local board of county commissioners the authority to register businesses in the unincorporated portions of their county. This is Senate Bill 70 that I am referring to, and a bill that LPC took an amend position on. The bill does not allow the board of commissioners to license or collect fees or fines for registrations, and CAR actually worked on amendments that did pass to clarify that businesses that do not register cannot be punished with a fee or fine. So that's a win for CAR. We're also looking at energy legislation. This is another big priority that we saw from the governor's office last year and moving forward. Looking at new renewables such as hydroelectricity, covering the costs for electric use for low-income Coloradans. This came out of COVID-19 relief, seeing that utility payments are very difficult for Coloradans to afford for those specifically impacted by COVID-19 and the related effects or loss of job, etc. And also we've seen proposals trying to prevent consumers from being able to choose natural gas as their option. So LPC is monitoring these bills and continuing to watch for new proposals coming forward. We're also seeing legislation with regard to changes to property tax appeals processes, and also changes to notice postcards. There was a bill that LPC looked at most recently that also classifies residential versus vacant property with regard to home improvements. So looking at if your property is deemed as residential and you buy the neighboring lot, what that classification of the neighboring lot would look like is dependent on the home improvements on that lot. Another priority that we've seen from our legislature, again, coming from, what we've seen from COVID-19 is that the pandemic has made it extremely difficult for both tenants and housing providers. And so our legislature is looking at landlord-tenant regulation that may not always balance the relief and support to both the landlord and the tenant. This is a big priority for our LPC, specifically our housing subcommittee. The proposals we've seen so far are looking at extending the eviction moratorium, looking at ways that renters' rights can increase, and limiting fees on which landlords can impose on their tenants. So those are a few items in which LPC is working on, but we're also expecting a lot more to come. And, the session is not over yet. We expect transportation funding to come through as a proposal. This again was a top priority for Governor Polis. We're hearing that a proposal would come forward that is looking at increasing the state's ability to fund and improve roads, bridges, transit, but in a way that spreads out the fees so that not just one group is bearing the weight, and that also general fund dollars are being allocated. So looking at, electric vehicle or specific ownership, different ideas so that all the users of our roads are putting in towards. We're also seeing energy-related bills that would require certain materials to be used. And ultimately, our concern is that it would increase the cost of housing, and that again just creates a barrier to home ownership. We have seen proposals to change election laws and expect more to come. We do expect that we will be seeing another House Bill 1420, which, as you remember, we did a call for action last year. And it was a tax on our small businesses and independent contractors. And we do expect this type of proposal to come back again as, another way to fill in the shortfalls in the budget and find new revenue. But this is definitely a big priority for CAR, and we will alert you of, this proposal as soon as it is introduced and next steps. We also expect to see legislation around HOA transparency and regulation of costs and dispute resolution. This was an item that came up last year during the legislative session, but did not move forward due to COVID-19 concerns. So we do expect to see these types of proposals again this year. We are also expecting legislation on special district transparency, which would include a standard way to post information and any fees related to that particular community. And then two other items on the list that we're expecting is any enterprise funding that could violate TABOR rules, and the public option bill for healthcare costs. That was a really big bill last year, but couldn't make it through due to COVID-19. So we do expect that to come back. So that was a lot of information that I did drop on you. LPC is extremely busy this year, and they just got started. I do want to remind you that at any time, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you can always reach out to your CAR Government Affairs staff, but also to your fellow colleagues that do serve on LPC. They're a great resource as well, and can also share that information with the group. So I am happy to take any questions at this time and take a pause there.
So if anyone has any questions, we can unmute you if you just raise your hand, or you can just put it in the chat box and we can answer them that way. Mike Budd is on the call, and he is actually our local Government Affairs Committee chair. So we'll be taking a look at some of these legislative priorities that are coming up. So, there's a lot, especially with the wildfire ones. We're kind of trying to put together a task force to kind of address, trying to get people to get mitigation done to their properties locally here. So.
Yes, and Erica, I must share that within Spring Summit, the Colorado Project Wildfire Task Force will be meeting. So we have a great agenda that we're working on right now. So if you have not signed up for Spring Summit, it is virtual this year, but that would definitely be a meeting worth attending. And if you can't make the full conference and just want to attend that one meeting, we're happy to just share that one Zoom link with you if that's what you prefer.
Great. And then I guess as far as some of these priorities, each week CAR sends out the Capital Connections, kind of giving everyone an update. So hopefully you guys are taking a look at that because it's filled full of information that Bridget has covered here. And I was going to say, does anyone have any questions? Everyone's pretty quiet. Well, Bridget, I guess if I can get from you that study, I'm happy to share that with everyone after the presentation here. It is recorded, so then we can share it with everyone in the membership. So, oh, looks like we might have a question. We got a raised hand. Let me, Cynthia, looks like you have a question. Okay.
Yeah, when you were talking about the builders and developers and the options and menus for the affordable housing, is there anything new in that? I mean, I don't know a whole lot about it, but there's certain things they have to do and certain percentages they have to build affordable in any new construction. Are there new requirements for them? Because that seems like things that they're required to do, but it looks like this is options and menus that they don't have to do everything. They can just pick 3 to 5 or whatever. Can you explain that a little better for me?
Yes. So every community is different. So the requirements for projects varies. So I will start with that. So depending on the project itself, whatever that, affordable housing allocation would vary. But the menu of options is to help that development through. So the permitting process in itself can take an extremely long time. And the longer a project is kind of stalled in that process, the more expensive it gets. And that expense ultimately could be pushed down to the consumer. And that in itself defeats the purpose of providing housing that is affordable and is something within reach of our Coloradans looking to buy a home. So ultimately, it's trying to find a way to work with our local governments to help these projects through the process smoothly, that doesn't, hurt the developer, financially, but also gives the community the type of housing that they're looking for.
Okay, great. Thank you. I also think that high school program sounds very interesting, that there's going to be some education at the high school level for credit and home ownership and all those kind of things. That's great.
Yeah, we're very excited about that. That's been something that members have brought forward for many years as something that we should definitely look into. And it was one of the top 2 barriers to home ownership within our study is the lack of financial literacy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cynthia. Anyone else have any questions?
Erica, I do have a couple of RPAC updates to give if the group is interested.
Great.
So I just wanted to let everybody know we have a couple of really fun events coming up. And thank you to those that have already invested and participated so far. We have our first ever virtual bourbon tasting class coming up at the end of the month. And just to let you know, if you are interested, registration closes on Friday, just so that we have enough time to get all the tasting kits and custom glasses mailed to those that are going to be participants for the event. You can find the link to register online, but I can also share the flyer with Erica as well for those of you that are interested in participating. It should be really fun. This was an idea that a few other realtor organizations recommended to us, so we're looking forward to it. And then for Spring Summit, we're doing an interesting, you could say, competition. So we have 5 major investors lined up that you can quote unquote vote for through your investment. And depending on how many dollars that individual raises, they will get a certain number of pies thrown at their face by their significant other. It will all be caught on film and shared with the world. But we're really looking forward to that. It should be really fun. You can vote for Tyrone Adams, Scott Peterson, Piper Knoll, Scott Matthias, and Keith Kanemoto. So voting is available now. Feel free to go do it and pick who you want to see get a pie thrown at their face.
All right. Well, that sounds like a lot of fun, for sure. Too bad we're not here in Vail like we were originally planned to be, but yeah, keep those RPEC investments coming in, and that's a fun way to engage. But all right. Well, I guess it seems like we don't have too many more questions. So if you guys do have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to me or Bridget as well. We'd be happy to answer anything that you have. And thanks for attending this morning.
Thank you, Erica. Nice to see everyone.
All right. Thank you.